There are two kinds of destruction. The first is loud, obvious, and primitive. It's what people expect when they are attacked. Rage, insult, chaos. The second is elegant, silent, and calculated. It's what people never see coming, and it's the one Machiavelli mastered. Because real power doesn't scream. It smiles, it nods, it agrees right before it removes your value from the room. If you truly want to destroy someone, don't argue with them. Don't expose them. Don't even threaten them. Just remain polite and let their world unravel piece by piece by your quiet refusal to react. Machiavelli knew that the most effective revenge is never emotional. It's strategic, and it's executed by those who have nothing left to prove. When you destroy someone politely, you're not just punishing them. You're erasing their control over your emotional state. And to someone driven by dominance, attention, or ego, that is worse than violence. So how does it work? It starts with one shift. You stop responding to their chaos and start manipulating the environment they rely on. Because some people aren't just dangerous, they're dependent. Dependent on your anger, on your forgiveness, on your need to be seen, heard, or understood. And the second you take that need away, they lose their grip on you. That's when you begin the real destruction, with calm eyes, a pleasant tone, and just enough detachment to make them question if you ever cared at all. There's something brutal about indifference wrapped in manners. It makes people spiral because it forces them to confront the one truth they fear most. You're not emotionally invested anymore. That smile you give them now, it's no longer warmth. It's a mask, a calculated signal that they've been moved from the center of your world to the margins of your strategy. And they will feel it, long before you ever raise your voice. Machiavelli believed that every human interaction is a negotiation of power. And power, when wielded correctly, should always feel inevitable, never impulsive. This is why polite destruction works so well. Because it's clean, it's classy, and it's devastating. You don't destroy them by proving them wrong. You destroy them by proving they no longer matter. Imagine this. Someone insults you publicly. They expect a reaction, anger, embarrassment, defense. They want attention. But instead you smile, you agree, you calmly say, "You might be right." And then you turn your attention to someone else, someone they secretly envy, someone who's now getting the validation they once craved. In one move, you've done three things: refused to give them power, elevated someone else in their place, and maintained your social grace. That's not just a power move, that's warfare, and you've won without raising your voice. This is Machiavelli's genius. Use their expectations against them. They expect confrontation, give them cooperation. They expect resistance, give them silence. They expect revenge, give them kindness laced with distance. And while they waste their energy trying to figure out your game, you're already 3 steps ahead, removing their allies, tightening their circle, and slowly, politely, making them irrelevant. That's destruction done right. Here's another method Machiavelli would love. Agree with them publicly, then undermine them privately. Smile in the meeting. Support their idea. Make them feel safe. Then quietly influence the people around them. Ask subtle questions. Plant strategic doubts. Shift the spotlight without them even noticing it's gone. By the time they realize what happened, they're surrounded by people who no longer trust them, but still smile to their face. That's not drama. That's design. But here's the part most people never understand. Destruction isn't about the person. It's about the pattern. You don't destroy someone because you're hurt. You destroy them because they've become a threat to your peace, your power, or your potential. And when that moment comes, you don't announce it. You withdraw. You deflect. You become professionally polite. And in doing so, you deny them the one thing they crave most, your emotional presence. Let's be clear. Polite destruction is not weakness. It is self-control, weaponized. It is grace used as armor. And it is how the most dangerous minds in history have eliminated enemies without ever raising a blade. Because when someone expects fire and you give them frost, you don't just confuse them, you paralyze them. They begin to question your every gesture. Was that smile genuine? Was that compliment sincere? Do they even see me anymore? That's psychological warfare, and Machiavelli would applaud it. You want revenge? Don't scream, don't threaten, don't block, curse, or expose. Just stop being emotionally available. Start being strategically polite, and when they crumble under the weight of your silence, when they drown in your absence, when they beg for the chaos they once mocked, you'll know it worked. You destroyed them, beautifully, and they never even saw the blade. There's a strange silence that follows polite destruction. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of confusion. They look at you and think, why aren't they angry? Why aren't they fighting back? And that's the genius of it. You've stripped them of the one thing they were depending on, your emotional reaction. Now they're stuck with politeness and paranoia. Because the moment you stop reacting, you become unreadable. And the unreadable person always has the advantage. Machiavelli believed that power should never be flaunted. It should be felt, quietly, inevitably, like gravity. So, when someone disrespects you, manipulates you, or tries to dominate you, your response isn't rage. It's removal, not just of your attention, but of their social foundation. And here's how you do it. You start with social freezing. You don't isolate them. You simply stop warming the space around them. That means you still greet them, but with mechanical courtesy. You still speak, but never first. You're not cold, but you're no longer warm. And people feel this shift deeply. It's like walking into a room that used to smell like home, and now smells like nothing. You haven't attacked them, but you've quietly removed the emotional oxygen. They'll smile. You'll smile back. But it won't reach your eyes, and that will terrify them, because now they don't know where they stand, and ambiguity is power. Another tactic is mirrored deference. Give them exactly what they give you, but politely. If they ignore your ideas, you start deferring to theirs in public. Make them the face of decisions that go wrong. Give them the floor when the spotlight is harsh, always with a smile, always with support. But the support feels too easy, too eager. They'll sense something is wrong, but won't be able to point to a single thing you did. Because you've matched their energy and added a twist of strategy. Then use empty praise with full precision. Praise them often, but vaguely. Tell them, you handled that situation very interestingly. Your leadership style is definitely unique. You're always so confident, it's admirable. To anyone listening, you're being gracious, but underneath it's laced with ambiguity. At the same time, in your actual work, be flawless, make no errors, show quiet excellence, be untouchable. That contrast between your gentle praise and your silent superiority eats away at people, because deep down they know you don't need their approval anymore. You've moved beyond them, and they feel it in your tone, in your timing, in your stillness. This is Machiavellian warfare. You don't fight for victory. You create a reality where you already won, and they can't figure out how it happened. And here's the secret behind it all. Politeness is the perfect mask for cruelty. People expect kindness to be emotional, but when your kindness is mechanical, precise, and detached, it becomes terrifying. They ask themselves, are they being polite or are they planning something? And you never answer that question. You just keep showing up, smiling, silent, polished, unreachable. Let's go deeper. Machiavelli would remind you, the person who keeps their emotions private holds the room. Because most people leak desperation. They overshare, they rant, they show their insecurity. But you say less, you speak slower. You always look like you're about to say something devastating, but never do. And that suspense, that's what breaks them. Not with fear, with uncertainty. Here's what polite destruction really looks like. They say something snide. You laugh softly and say, "That's a fascinating opinion. I love how confident you are." Then change the subject. Or better, ask them to elaborate in front of others. Let them ramble. Let them overexpose themselves. You sit back, calm, relaxed. You didn't attack them. You gave them space to destroy themselves politely. And everyone felt the shift, even if no one can explain it. That's surgical. That's Machiavellian. And now comes the final tactic. Exit without closure. This is the kill shot. After all the polite distance, the calm maneuvering, and the graceful repositioning, you leave. But not in a dramatic way. You simply stop showing up in their orbit. No last words, no cold stare, no grand ending. Just a perfectly timed silence that follows a season of flawless, distant grace. And the moment they realize you're no longer accessible, that you've emotionally exited without warning, the entire structure collapses. Because what they thought was tension was actually dependence. And now that you're gone, they're left questioning who they are without your reactions to define them. Machiavelli didn't want power that had to announce itself. He wanted power that people felt, even when he wasn't in the room. That's what polite destruction is. It's not about ego. It's not about proving someone wrong. It's about designing a future where your enemy is forgotten and you're remembered for how silently you ended them. You didn't shout. You didn't fight. You didn't break. You smiled. You waited. You executed. And by the time they noticed, you were already gone. By now, you understand. The art of polite destruction isn't about doing damage. It's about letting people destroy themselves in your presence while you remain untouched. Machiavelli would say that true power lies in the ability to shift perception, not just behavior. So, when you destroy someone politely, you're not only managing your own image, you're distorting theirs. And that distortion is what lingers, because even after you're gone, their reputation bleeds, their confidence cracks, their authority rots quietly from the inside out, and no one can trace it back to you because you didn't attack. You simply allowed truth to surface. Let's now move into the next layer, turning your enemy's strengths into liabilities without ever challenging them directly. This is the ultimate form of polite destruction. You use their ego as the weapon. You let them expose themselves by doing exactly what they think they're best at. A powerful tactic is to amplify their confidence in public. This is the reversal they never expect. Instead of disagreeing with your rival, you praise them, but you do it in the wrong context. Tell the aggressive person they're wonderfully assertive during a discussion about diplomacy. Compliment the impulsive person on their bold decisiveness right after a poor decision. Applaud the arrogant one for their fearless honesty in front of people who secretly resent them. Every word you say feels like support, but it's a spotlight, a magnifying glass, and under it, they sweat. You're not just being polite, you're being surgical, because what you're doing is this. You're weaponizing sincerity. And the more sincerely you smile, the more suspicious they become. Eventually, they won't trust your praise. They won't trust your silence. They won't trust your presence. They'll unravel not from what you've done, but from what they think you might be doing. That's the brilliance of this strategy. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. In other words, perception is stronger than action. So when you destroy someone politely, you're not tearing down their status directly. You're guiding the audience to do it for you. And how do you do that? You use questions. Next, you use Socratic sabotage. Ask questions you already know the answer to, but ask them in public. For example, what was your reasoning behind that move? I'd love to understand your thinking. Or, that idea you mentioned. Could you walk us through the steps again? Or, I noticed the outcome didn't match the goal. Was that intentional? These are not attacks. They're invitations. Invitations for the other person to speak freely and reveal their lack of depth. You don't challenge, you inquire. You let the weight of their incompetence land, while you sit back and listen respectfully, quietly, almost admiringly. That's psychological demolition, and you did it with 3 words and a calm face. But here's where the destruction becomes complete. You don't stay to celebrate it. You don't wait for applause. You don't linger for validation. You exit with grace, mid-conversation if you must. You nod. You thank them. You leave. Because the mark of someone truly powerful is that they never need to stay and watch the collapse they orchestrated. They already know the outcome. They planned for it. Let's go one level deeper. What do you do when your enemy tries to reconcile? What if they sense they're being outmaneuvered and attempt to win you back? You accept it. You accept their apology. You smile. You act grateful. But you never, not even once, return to the intimacy they once had with you. You respond slower. You don't initiate. You become the polite version of a stranger. That's the cruelest kindness, because it confirms their worst fear. They were forgiven, but never regained access. And that isn't punishment. It's a lesson. Machiavelli wouldn't scream at the traitor. He'd promote them sideways. He'd welcome them in public and let them wither in private, because exile doesn't always need to be geographic. Sometimes the most brutal exile is emotional. You didn't yell. You didn't expose. You didn't threaten. You kept the mask on and let the mask drive them mad. This is where power becomes legacy. Not just a moment of revenge, but a reputation. A reputation that says they don't react, they remove. They don't attack, they vanish. They don't speak, but everyone listens. And now, the final principle, the one most people will never have the discipline to execute. When the destruction is complete, say nothing. Let them talk, let them spin, let them beg, accuse, or fall silent. But you move on, quietly, elegantly, with no need to explain yourself, because polite destruction only works if the silence is maintained after the storm. Machiavelli understood, real dominance isn't shown in how you punish others. It's shown in how little you need to. By now, they've felt it, the shift, the silence, the smile that no longer reaches your eyes. They don't know what changed. They just know that the room feels colder when you enter and hollow when you leave. This is not punishment. This is precision. Because if you followed every step correctly, you haven't just removed yourself emotionally. You've reshaped how others perceive them. You've rewritten the script of who holds power without a single direct confrontation. And now, they're performing damage control. Alone, confused, suspicious of everyone, especially themselves. That's not just destruction. That's a psychological masterpiece. Machiavelli's genius was this. He never needed to be the loudest voice in the room. He simply knew how to make others question what they thought they understood. And once doubt takes root, control follows. Because the most polite way to destroy someone is to let them expose their own instability, while you remain the picture of grace. They gossip, you don't respond. They mock, you compliment. They attack, you thank them. You don't match their energy. You drown it in poise. You become a mirror they can't crack, no matter how hard they punch. Here's what happens next, and Machiavelli knew it well. They begin to self-sabotage. You don't have to isolate them. They isolate themselves. They grow paranoid, trying to decode your silence. They lose focus, making mistakes just to prove they're still in control. They become visibly unsettled and others start noticing. All because you removed the one thing that stabilized them, your emotional engagement. People don't realize how dependent they are on your presence until your presence becomes polite. Not warm, not angry, not reactive, just neutral. That neutrality is poison to insecure people because it forces them to face what they fear most. They no longer matter. They are no longer a threat. You are no longer playing their game. Now we move into the final phase. Erasure. Polite destruction doesn't end with humiliation. It ends with absence. You stop mentioning them. You stop watching them. You stop referencing their name in any space that once echoed their importance. You don't celebrate their fall. You act like it never happened, like they never existed. That is the final act of power, to erase someone without rage. Because rage gives them legacy. Silence buries them. And when they try to bring you up, when they try to bait you back into reaction, you stay poised, you stay light. You respond with a phrase that kills egos instantly. "Oh, I haven't thought about them in ages." That line doesn't just sting. It collapses whatever fantasy they were clinging to. They were rehearsing a battle. You forgot there even was one. Machiavelli would remind you. The purpose of polite destruction is not vengeance, it's reputation. Because when others see that you can destroy someone quietly, without chaos, without retaliation, without even raising your tone, they begin to fear your silence more than they fear most people's anger. That's the level you ascend to, where people hesitate to cross you, not because you're loud, but because they know you'll never give them another chance. You become untouchable, unbothered, unmatched. Let's be brutally clear about something. Most people destroy themselves trying to destroy others. They lash out, they argue, they reveal their wounds in the name of justice. But Machiavelli's student, you never stoop. You rise, not out of arrogance, but out of calculation. Because emotion is for amateurs, and you are building an empire, not an ego trip. Your power isn't in how you punish. It's in how little you require revenge at all. You've already won. You knew it the moment you stopped needing them to understand your silence. So what happens to them now? They'll keep trying to draw you back, not always with attacks, sometimes with compliments, sometimes with apologies, sometimes with tears. But none of it matters, because you're not playing the same game anymore. You're not trying to win. You're proving you've already moved beyond. Your kindness was the rope. Your poise was the blade. And now your absence is the grave. Machiavelli's real lesson wasn't about war or politics. It was about understanding the weakness of those who crave control and never expect to lose it politely. And when you master this, you no longer need to defend yourself. Your enemies dismantle themselves in the silence you leave behind. You don't just destroy reputations, you haunt them. Not because you're cruel, but because you were kind, until they mistook your kindness for permanence. So here's your final move. Say nothing, show nothing, lose nothing, and let the quiet echo of your absence be the loudest thing they ever hear. That is Machiavellian destruction, polished, patient, permanent.